Hello and welcome to Verse vs. Verse. Today, we are going to be doing a No-Pokemon-Center Nuzlocke run of Pokemon Emerald. Really the whole point of this is I just want to answer Bible questions, but I understand the channel's a little on the small side, so while I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'm going to do the Nuzlocke run. The way that's going to work, if you're not familiar with Nuzlocke runs, is essentially if a Pokemon faints, it stays dead forever. In addition to that, I only get to catch the first Pokemon in each route. And lastly, and most importantly, maybe, I cannot heal using the Pokemon Centers. So if you want a full list of the rules, those are in the description. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the general shell of things. It creates a more difficult way to play the game that gives an allowance for if things go poorly, then I can lose and just not be able to finish the game at all. Adds a little bit of stakes to it. In any event, hopefully we get some fun Bible questions so we can discuss theology and that sort of thing. And let's get started. So the nice thing about doing this on an emulator like this, and by the way, I have purchased this game so I don't feel bad about using an emulator, but the nice thing is that we can skip past most of the content quickly. If I hold space, it goes really fast, which is why the audio sounds like that, which will allow us to get past the boring bits a little quicker. We are, of course, going to name our main character Verse, because that is in theme with the channel. And also, one of the little quirks of Nuzlocke runs is it is required that because the Pokemon can faint and then be gone forever, it's required that you name them all. That way it hurts more when they die, which is, just the special flavor of fun that Pokemon Nuzlockes like to use. So, as always, Pokemon Emerald opens with making you set the clock. We are going to set it to, let's see, it would be nice if we got a mixture of night and day encounters, and I am probably only going to play for a few hours today, but let's set it at like 5 a.m. That'll transition sooner or later. So, 5 a.m. Yes, I know how to read a digital clock, maybe. There we go. Or analog. This kind of clock I know how to read. Anyway, for anyone who's just joined the chat, the basic idea of what we're doing here today is I am a seminary student, and I like answering Bible questions, just theology stuff, in my free time. I find it fun. But the channel's not very big, so I can't just do a Q&A. If I do that, then there won't be enough questions to fill the Q&A. So in the meantime, while we wait for those types of questions to come in, Nuzlocke run. Oh right, we have to talk to May first, and then we can go get our first Pokemon, and the run really starts. I suppose I didn't put in the rules that the run doesn't start until after the first rival fight, but that is standard, and that is the way that we'll be doing it. For example, the first route, it's not like I can't catch Pokemon there because I encountered one before I had Pokeballs. Alright, we are of course going to go with Mudkip, because we like Mudkips, and that is the only option as far as I'm concerned. And it being the first Pokemon, it's only fitting that we name this one Adam, meaning the Earth. And the first man, but in this case, not a man, a Pokemon. One that hopefully will not die immediately, because if it did, that would, Honestly, I have a big problem with that. When I do Nuzlocke runs, a lot of the time I lose my starter. I don't know why that is. I'm pretty successful on them, I win most of them, but I just tend to lose my starter a lot, so that's peculiar. One other thing to think about with these types of runs is we do have a level cap of whatever the next gym is. So we are capped at 15 here, and I have to make sure not to level my guys past that point. Right now we're trying to head up to where May is. I don't think the Pokemon will let you buy Pokeballs at this point, but if it does, I will use them. Let's see. Oh, no, it's not. Just potions. Although I guess that could be handy. thoughts on the question... Oh, hi, Tomas. Thoughts on the question, how can God be the pillar of moral authority if he did not explicitly ban slavery? That is a good question. We actually had a similar one the other day, although that one was on genocide regarding the book of Joshua and them conquering, the Israelites conquering Canaan and all of that stuff. But essentially the question is somewhat similar, which is there are things in the Old Testament, or the Bible in general, that appear at a bare minimum, to be very morally problematic. So how can that be the case if God is good? So I would say we have to zoom out a little bit and get a better understanding of what the Old Testament law is and what it isn't. Because what I immediately think of when I think of Old Testament law, what I imagine it to be, is I would intuitively think that the Old Testament law would be sort of a perfect set of moral rules by which people should abide. I mean, that one would think if God's giving a law, that would be what it is. For better or for worse, that is not what the Bible says the Old Testament law is. And the reason I say that is we have, for one, things like the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus speaks to people, and when he's giving that sermon, he says repeatedly, "You have heard it said," and then he usually quotes from the law, and then he follows it with, "But I say," and then gives a stricter or different rule than the one that's given in the law, or sometimes in a rabbinic interpretation of the law. And in addition to that, when Jesus is talking about the issue of divorce specifically, he says that the reason that men were allowed to issue a certificate of divorce to their wives in the Old Testament, well, in the Torah, the only testament at that point in time, not that the whole Old Testament would be the only testament, the Torah is part of that. Anyway, the reason he said certificates of divorce were permitted was because of the hardness of the people's hearts. So it appears that what's happening when God gave the law to Moses and to the people of Israel was that he was not giving a perfect law, but it was essentially a sort of compromise between God's morality and what the people would be best able to operate under. Now, of course, every single person violated the law anyway and fell short of it, so it's not as though this is like a law that people like or are able to follow. It is still stricter than our morality appears to be capable of adhering to, but it is not maximally in line with God's morality. And I think the reason for that is if God's giving a perfect law, practically speaking, one would think it would be perfect for the time and place it is given and to the people to whom it is given, for the goal of sanctifying those people and as in helping them to become better people and creating a good circumstance. Not perfect in the sense that ideally we'd want everyone to do this, because if you just tell people the ideal set of rules in a context that is very far divorced of that, they're just going to violate it 24/7, and it's not going to have the effect it might have otherwise. Not to say we've done a great job. There's been a lot of violating anyway. So, onto the issue of slavery, specifically. Slavery is very bad. There's a lot of things in the Bible that are thematically very opposed to slavery. I mean, the entire book of Philemon is Paul talking to a slave owner about a slave he's good friends with and asking the slave owner to free that slave. The biblical themes appear to be anti-slavery. In fact, when the abolitionist movement was taking place in the United States, it was very largely a Christian movement, although, in fairness, it can be said as well that the folks from the South misused the Bible to try to justify slavery as well. So, in any case, the fact that the Bible permits for, or the Old Testament law permits for something that is not in accordance with biblical themes, something like slavery, most likely exists for a combination of reasons. One, people would be unlikely to follow the law at all, or for the law to have the maximal effect if it were any stricter than it already was. Two, in that culture, slavery was so pervasive and so common, it wasn't really cognizable. Like, one could not really imagine a world without slaves at that time, which is terrible, and thank God that's not the case anymore, and that seems weird to us today. But one reason for that, for example, is if you don't have social systems in place to protect people financially, then you might end up in a situation where people are destitute, and their options are, well, first they sell everything they have to try to buy food. Once they're out of that, their options are starve to death or sell themselves. Which, if there's not a methodology by which people can sell themselves, then you see the issue. I'm not saying slavery is the solution here. I think we should have social programs in place to avoid that, among countless other steps before we get to that point. But without that sort of social infrastructure in place, you can imagine why slavery would be as pervasive as it was in the ancient world. So, yeah, that would essentially be my answer. I think it's bad. I think humans have free will, and I think God's permitting humans to act within that free will. And I think that the optimal set of laws that God could give to the ancient people, as counterintuitive as this is to us today, because I don't particularly like this. Like, if I were the one picking the rules, I would have kicked out slavery. But, in God's providence, he didn't do that. And when in doubt, he's probably more right than me, even when it's counterintuitive, like it is in this case. So that's a good question. And I would also say that if that's a stumbling block to you, if that's something where you're like, I just can't possibly, follow a God who allowed slavery, there are a lot of more theologically liberal leaning theologians who would argue that the Levitical law, the Old Testament law, is essentially the legal code of the people of Israel more so than a code given by God, and would argue that the interplay between God and that law is minimal. Now, I don't think so. I think that's basically denying too much of the Exodus narrative and is not taking the Bible as what it's saying it is. But some people find themselves there. So, I mean, there's other ways to reconcile this. There's a lot of schools of thought on it. The good news is no one is reading this and coming away at a conclusion where slavery is okay and the Bible actually condones it. We're coming away at a place where an evil institution was permitted during a time because humans are terrible and God allows for free will. And that is one thing that humans chose to do in their free will, very unfortunately. So, good question. I have not been reading any of what the text has been saying on the screen, but I do think, hopefully we have Pokeballs, do we? I don't actually even know how to enter. There we go. I wasn't sure how to press the enter button on the emulator. We do have those. That's good. So now we can start catching things. A common theme seen so Tomas Reyes says, I should know how to pronounce that last name. I did marry you. A common theme seen throughout some New Age people, think non-denominational, can be, oh, well, the Old Testament is just stories not to be taken literally. The New Testament is real, though. Yeah, I agree that is a thing that people say. And I think that's more pervasive than just non-denominational folks. I think that in, again, a lot of more theologically liberal places, contexts, they will not care so much what the Old Testament has to say because it disagrees with their views, and at the end of the day, they would essentially sum it up to, God says, love God, love others, oftentimes flipping the order of those if you're in a more social liberal place. And so I don't think the Old Testament comports with those in my view, so I'm just going to ignore it. Obviously, I see a lot of problems with that reasoning. But yes, there is a lot of that. I think the New Testament is totally... it's essentially, in my view, gibberish if you don't have the Old Testament as background. The Old Testament is the canvas on which the New Testament is painted. If you... Just one random example of that. If you don't know what the word Messiah means, or Son of Man, or if you don't know who I am is, or that's even a name, then a lot of elements of who Jesus is and what the Gospels mean would be lost to you. And also, like, just a doctrine of what sin is, and the idea that, a sort of history lesson on how that's gone so far in terms of people obeying the law. Not well. Yeah, short story. I think the Old Testament's important, but I do think it is something that, it's further back in time, and it is much more poetic for lots of parts of it. Like, the New Testament is, you got 4 basically, I'm stretching a little bit, but essentially history books in the Gospels, followed by a bunch of letters by Paul saying, hey, here's what you should do, followed by one book of prophecy. And also there's some other epistles in there as well, some other letters. So it's very easy to just read it and take it for what it says, whereas the Old Testament has a much broader scope of genres here. Like, we've got the Torah, which is a mixture of poetry, narrative, and law. And I may be missing something, but that's what comes to mind at the beginning. And then you have a bunch of historical narrative, a bunch of poetry, prophecy. You've got one very steamy book in Song of Solomon. I remain convinced Jonah is intentionally within the genre of comedy, among other things. So the point is, it makes the Old Testament harder to interpret, because if you just pick it up, open to a random place, and pretend you can read it all the same, that doesn't really work out, which leads to a lot of strange views on the Old Testament. So we have our second Pokemon, which is the first female Pokemon, so that works well. So we're going to name it Eve, but because we are theology nerds, we are actually going to give the Hebrew pronunciation of Eve's name, which is Old Hebrew Chava, in, well, I suppose it's closer to Hawa, but Hawa? Anyway, I'm not great at pronouncing Hebrew, because I don't speak Hebrew, I read it a little. But most people don't realize this. The name Eve was created by, I believe it was Latin Vulgate. It was in a Latin translation of the Old Testament. And the Latin word for life is Eve, and the Hebrew word for life is Hawa. And so her name being, I'm going to just do it the way it's spelled in modern Hebrew instead of in ancient Hebrew, Chava, that's the easier way to say it. That Hebrew word was translated to the Latin word for life, Eve, instead of transliterated, and then we just kept the Latin term instead of the Hebrew one ever since then. So it's one of the only examples of a name like that in Scripture where it was not transliterated, but just straight up translated across a translation, and that stuck. Usually, like, for example, with Joshua, you have Yehoshua, which is pretty close to the sounding of Joshua because it's just a transliteration of the word. But not so with Eve. Let's check, actually. I think this is the generation that created abilities. So, yes, and we got pickup. That's what I was hoping we would have. Money is more important on a No-Pokemon-Center run because we have to buy healing items because it's the only way to heal. And it also makes it a little more complicated. This is a separate route thing from down here, right? Oops, didn't mean to do that. Because if it is, then I can catch something. Oh, Tomas Reyes, and I missed this a while ago, said hard to fit some of these questions in the total number of characters. Yeah, that's true. Feel free to send multiple messages if that makes it easier. Yeah, so that's 101, this is 103, so we can catch some here. Hey, Wingle, nice. I don't really know why I said that. Wingle's not great. Then we have water type. But still, cool, Wingle. I was going to say that's good for the first gym because rock and water are super effective, but it's not that great because flying. Anyway, what will we name the female bird? Well, in the interest of me not having to think too hard about this, let's just go with famous Sarah from Abraham's wife. We'll just kind of go forward through time with these names unless I get more creative over time. We'll go with the name that it was changed to. I'm disturbed by the use of lowercase letters. Well, I'm disturbed by your apparent use of non-lowercase letters exclusively, because that's annoying and hard to read. So we will be using lowercase letters. And Puchian is actually better here than anything else we have because it gets Intimidate. So it's not like excellent on its own, but as sort of a support piece you can switch into, it's pretty helpful. Another female name, we will go with Rebecca, Isaac's wife. I think that's how it's spelled in the Old Testament. Well, I guess it would just be spelled in Hebrew either way, and we're just transliterating it. So CCA is as correct as any other spelling we might have, even if something else has become customary in English. So this is another thing you have to think about, is we don't have unlimited amounts of money, so I have to be selective about who gets healed. I think we're just going to leave the Wingle unhealed and unused for the most part. Oh, I meant to switch to set mode. I will do that now. In set mode, you can't switch between the Pokemon they send out, which makes it a little harder. It is a pretty standard rule for Nuzlocke runs. Does that save it? I think that saves it. Yes. Probably save those mud slaps, actually. Because not being able to use Pokemon Center, it becomes much more important that you keep your PP at a decent level. One of the other rules I set for myself is you could make this run a lot easier by just allowing yourself to plant berries. So, I don't! You can pick them, but you can't plant them, is the rule I use. Oh, that's not good. So Mudkip, if I remember correctly, doesn't get its water typing until it evolves, or its ground typing rather. So that would only be super effective, and Shroomis has like no special attack stat, or attack. I mean, the attack's even worse than special attack. So I think we can take. Yeah, we're fine. Okay, now we have to switch. The situation is slightly dangerous, but not too bad. Okay, there we go. We have survived the Shroomish. But we are actually in a pretty bad situation in terms of heals right now. So, oops, not awakening, paralyze heal. Just because we are low on money and low on heals, which is the exact opposite of what we'd like. But this should get easier as we go somewhat in terms of moderating the money use. I don't remember where anything is. It's been forever since I played Gen 3. Literally, I think the last time was shortly after Omega Ruby came out, which was many, many years ago. One of the more amusing things I've seen in this game is it is apparently possible for that Ralts on the screen to be shiny, and obviously you can't catch it, it just gives Wally a shiny Ralts if that happens, but it's just a little funny that the game would taunt you like that. Okay, we have the shiny hunting for the uncatchable Ralts, absolutely. So we have the duplicate claws on, which means that when I run into a Wingull like that, I don't have to use that as my own encounter. It basically doesn't count, and we'll roll again and get a Wurmple, which is probably not better, but it's something. Oh, well, now it's nothing, so never mind. I would have tackled usually, but I was hesitant to use tackle because I only had 2 PP left for it. Not that losing the Wurmple's a big loss, especially because the gym we would be using it for is the rock gym. You see, if this weren't a No-Pokemon-Center run, I would be training up at least a second guy to use, and then switching in situations like this, but that would use too many potions to try to train something up right now, so such is life. Oh wait, I haven't done Magikarp, would be a good opportunity for that. there's an item here. Nope. Okay. That's just where you get to the, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who carries you over to the second gym. And no, I'm not. I was thinking about whether or not I was going to count, this is exactly what I was thinking about, failed encounters against the duplicate clause, and I'm not, so this counts as a unique encounter. Hopefully we don't kill our second Wurmple. Who is it originally that said, "I am a worm and not a man"? I think that was David in one of his psalms. We're going to check. Definitely a psalm. Let's go to Psalm 22. Yes, Psalm of David. So, we have David. He is a worm and not a man. Or so he says. That is why we love the pickup ability, because that super potion is actually really impactful in this situation. It's difficult because we don't have access to ethers, and I do need those water guns and such for the gym, so we're probably forced to do a little bit of switching here. And I think probably the Poochyena is better than the Wurmple, but it's not by much. It's better once it evolves, but for now anyway. Okay, we probably have to switch there. Given that it's over twice the level. Oh, this is a dangerous situation. Okay, we're fine. Oops. Okay, so this is the last we stand. So difficult situation because we don't want to use more of the very few water guns we have on Mudkip, but everything else is likely to lose here. Sacking Wingull here feels super unnecessary. It might not have anything that can hit a bug type like itself, and we could try to switch into this, get the poison sting, and then switch between everything basically to, well, it dies from the poisoning. So we'll try that. That worked well. Oops, probably should have forgot there to lower the attack. Unfortunate, that is the unnecessary sack we were talking about. Okay, we have to use the Mudkip anyway. We'll save the water guns at least. Oh, I didn't even realize there was a second one. That's funny. Yeah. R.I.P. indeed. Okay, this is actually not an okay situation. So this is Route 104, which I think is the same as the previous route, which means it's not a unique catch. And there's a trainer to the right that, if I remember correctly, has a grass type of some sort. I just remember it being problematic for Mudkip starts. Which means that if we don't heal here, something else to use, then we might be in trouble. So we are going to burn a lot of our healing items. That encounter I was talking about, if I'm remembering it correctly, and it has been a while, would be to the right, so we're not going towards that yet. I think 104 is the same route as what's before the woods anyway. Would be funny if I was wrong. Yeah, after that growl, we really can't do anything to this, so we are forced again to switch out. This is what I was talking about. So we will go for a howl and then a bunch of tackles and hope this low tap doesn't hit very hard. Going well so far. Alright, that is unironically just about the most dangerous thing we're going to run into before probably the second gem, because rock's not going to be hard for us, short of just running out of healing items, which is still very much a risk. Oops, keep doing that. Don't know why I left an item on this. That doesn't really make sense given it has pickup. We could have a loss here. The fast way past this, or the easier way, would be to go back to the PC and then limit our party to a single Pokemon, and then you can walk past these guys without triggering a fight. But that sounds dangerous, because we probably couldn't make it through the woods without using just Mudkip in that case, and we don't want to use the PV, so we're just going to fight it and hope it goes okay. Probably best to take out the Lotad and hope the C-Dot uses Bite a bunch, because it likes to do that, which will do nothing if we're not hitting it. So, fingers crossed. Maybe a Howl first, because these guys aren't going to deal much damage. My guys aren't. Oops, that was a misclick. Worked out. We were trying to attack the C-Dot, but we got the poison, or the Lotad, but we got the poison on the C-Dot, so it works out. Is Lappa the one that restores PP? I don't remember, but it sounds right. It is. That is very handy. Don't usually like to use a Leppa Berry on tackle, but it's the only attack it has, and we don't have any workaround to that yet in its games or anything. Oh yeah, I was trying to remember why I was walking in there. It's because I needed to bury one of our party members. So Sheol is one of the words that's not how you spell that, is one of the words that is sometimes translated hell in the Old Testament, and, well, its Greek equivalent, Hades, in the New Testament. I don't think in its uses in the Old Testament that's usually the best translation. A better word is grave, which the majority of translations will use grave. So, this is the grave for the Pokemon who have fainted. Oops, didn't need to do that. I don't think we've gotten the rod yet, have we? I can't remember where you get in this game. We've talked to most folks, but I don't think we've unlocked it. No. And I don't think you can get over here. No, you cannot. Okay, so no encounter yet for that route, but you can go to the right before the gym. And so we can get an encounter here, and I think you can also get one from that, the cave with all the Whismur in it. That's actually a really good encounter, because we will also get a Shedinja out of that when it evolves. I was gonna go for Rachel next, but Rachel is described in the Bible, that's the wife of Jacob, of Israel, as being very beautiful. And I don't know if the bug is the right choice for that, so we will instead do something very mean and name the bug after her sister, who is described as being less appealing to the eyes, unfortunately. Just checking how many water guns we have left. Yeah, we probably need to go and use a Pecha Berry to fix that. Or, oh, Leper Berry, I mean, Lone Berry. The one that restores 10 PP. This is a bad situation. We cannot afford to lose that because it's going to be a second encounter later with the Shedinja once it evolves. And we have to send out something that has type disadvantage to get past this. And that only has type disadvantaged moves, so hopefully we don't lose anything here. Okay, we maybe passed the Killer Skirmish. But it was not cheap. Okay, usually I would grind at this point to try to level up to the level cap here, which would be 15 for the first gym, but we are running out of money, and grinding is expensive in terms of healing items, so we are probably just going to try to take on gym as is, which, not ideal, but it's where we are. No, so Tomas says TPK coming, total party kill. Probably not. If this were a different gym, I would be concerned, but Roxanne is one of the easier gyms, frankly, in any of the games. And with a Mudkip, we should be okay, even if it's under-leveled. So, fingers crossed. The rest of the team's really bad against Rock, but ideally it can just sweep. We will see. We need 10 uses to get through it. So I think Roxanne herself has 2 Pokemon. And I think there's like 2 or 3 others, so probably 5. So we probably need like 8 uses of a water gun to get through the gym. So we're okay to use one there. I should not have taken that as a double battle. That was a mistake. Oops. Well, I didn't actually mean to replace Tackle with Bide, but Tackle was out of PP anyway, so it's not bad. I think we're out of Oran Berries, and none of these are going to be helpful for the for this gym, so we will go without an item. Well, this is actually worse than I thought it would be. Oh good, it worked out. Never mind, we're fine. I was a little worried we wouldn't be able to take out the nose pass with the PP we had left. Luckily we get Mud Shot here, which is good because we're out of, like, attacks for the most part. I don't want to sub out Water Gun because there are situations where we can get, like, Lepa Berries and that kind of thing to get the PP back, so I'd rather leave it. The question is, do we get rid of Bide or Growl? Growl is usually better, but if we're completely out of attacks, Bide becomes usable. I just think it's too bad for a Nuzlocke, so yeah, we'll get rid of Bide. Just because if you're trying to take damage in a situation where you are having to pay to heal that damage back, it just doesn't seem good. And yes, the spacebar speed up can be problematic. I've gotten myself in trouble with it many times, and I continue to use it anyway, because I am just not the wisest person in the world. That escape rope is actually pretty handy for a lot of situations we could find ourselves in. I forget where the May fights are in this game, because I remember May just sort of pops up and challenges you seemingly at random in this game a lot, which is bad for our situation. But I don't remember where they are, so there's not a lot I can do about it. Oh yeah, oh wait, no. I was gonna say I should go ahead and go to the Whismer Cave and grab another encounter, but I'm not gonna use a Whismer anyway, and we need to leave a space empty so that when Ninkata evolves, we can get a Shedinja. Uh-oh. Good luck, David. Oh, I forgot Uproar gets stronger every move. It's been a while. Whoops, that was bad. Okay, Poochyena has no moves anymore. I've beaten runs like this before. This is going more problematically than usual from the perspective of keeping PP up. Usually you get more TMs and stuff, which are really handy. And also usually, you know, your secondary Pokemon would have learned an attacking move by now, which Poochyena has not and ran out of tackles, so not great. This also gets easier because if I remember correctly, you can buy ethers later in the game, which would go a long way right now in order to restore the PP of moves. And I did not switch who was in front. It's okay. Level cap now is 19, so I have to be a little careful about using Marshtomp. But I don't really have anyone else I can use, so hopefully we get a good Whismer. Not that one. It needs to be in the cave for us to be allowed to catch it and use it. That's not good. Yes, I agree. I didn't see the comment until just now, but Tomas said, these games are basically unplayable at normal speed if you have used the spacebar. I agree. Especially the older ones where the movement speed is just generally lower. They don't give you things like the bike pretty much immediately. Yeah, it's painful. This thing is so bad. I want to use it, but it's so bad. probably should predict that given it's a hiker. Well, that's dangerous. We're just gonna try to use the great ball we have. Good. That went better than anticipated. So who's someone from the Bible who would be loud? And in a rocky place, I think Peter fits. Why did we not get to level 8 Whismer? So the difficult part here is I'm inclined to use something other than Marshtomp if we can, because we're running out of PP. But we will lose if we try that right now, because everything else we have that has attacks is bad, and the Poochyena doesn't have any moves with PP at the moment. So we're probably forced to use it and just hope we run into a new solution before we run out of PP with Marshtomp later on. Which will not take long. And also it's very close to the level cap, so we have a couple problems there. Forgot we had Rock Tomb, which is helpful if nothing else. At least we have a move besides Mud Shot. And I don't think anyone could use Bullet Seed, but we'll check. No. So that conversation would have been fun without the speed up. Oh, right, he's going to use the Pokenav. trying to remember how to get the old rod. That's pretty significant in terms of encounters, so I'm gonna look it up. Oh, right, it's in Dewford, the second gym town, so we're pretty close. And it's next to the gym, so we probably just need to head down there next. Speaking of rival encounters, I didn't know she gave you an option. That's excellent. Oh, she heals. Did she heal the whole party for us? I had forgotten about this. Oh my gosh, life is good. Never mind, we love random rival encounters. Okay, we are okay again. We can't use Marshtomp much, otherwise it's going to exceed the level cap, but we can use it for switch training, which is what we're going to do. The next gym is a fighting gym, so probably using a dark type as our secondary Pokemon is not a good plan, nor are either of the normal types. So we are going to have to go with our Nincada as our secondary mon, which is not ideal. Oh, this is bad. Okay, so what can we and can't we afford to lose here? We can't afford to lose the Mightyena, because that's actually, once it evolves, the best thing we have on this team. We can't afford to lose the Sigazagoon because it has pickup. We can't afford to lose this because it is the path to getting a Shedinja, which is actually really useful in this format if you're careful. So the only thing we can afford to lose here is the Whismur. And if I go straight into anything else, we're just going to die, and if I leave the Marshtomp out, there's a good chance it dies. So we're going to go for the Whismur and it's going to die. And then we'll probably go for Leia next and really hope we can pull that off. Odds are it dies too, and then we go back to Marshtomp and win, but not great. It's winning so far. We live. And Leia did her best. Okay. This is still kind of okay. I mean, it's not great, but we're going to get 2 encounters pretty much immediately when we get to the next town, which we're able to head to pretty much immediately. And those 2 encounters should be, I think the only thing you can catch with an old rod there by the city is going, by Dewford, is going to be a Magikarp, which will be very useful later and not useful at all in the short term, and and something in the cave, so probably a fighting type or an Aeron or something, like a Makuhita or an Aeron or something like that. Silk Scarf is handy. So we got him to max attack, and then got confused and attacked ourselves. So we almost one-shot ourselves there, which is grateful that that didn't happen. And we're poisoned again. Oh, right. Probably should take care of the poison. There's the guy with the rods. Oh, that's really unfortunate. I didn't realize that there's no Pokemon in this town, which is more problematic when you're not allowed to use the Pokemon Center for healing. Oh well. Wonder where the select button is on these keybinds. I'm guessing it's shift if I had to guess. Nope, that's wrong. It's backspace. Tentacool. Given that we will get a Magikarp somewhere else, I don't mind getting the Tentacool right now, while we can actually use it at a low level. Whereas we wouldn't be able to use the Magikarp. In terms of it being useful until it evolves. So we will take that. The situation is dangerous, though. I didn't want to damage it with the Mudkip or the Marshtomp because it would have one-shot it almost for sure. And I couldn't use the other, the Poochyena, because it was basically 0 health. I should have healed it. And this Zigzagoon's not going to do anything to it. So we're just going to try Pokeballs, and we will flee if the Zigzagoon dies. Very good! Okay, need another female Bible name. We will go with Rachel for this one, because we already had her sister Leia die. I always do that. Actually, we probably need to leave something else in front so that we can switch train. Not great to just be basically training up 2 water types, but the Tentacool is probably the best other option we have. And we're going to head back to town to get more antidotes before we do anything else, because it's too dangerous otherwise that we might get poisoned and have everyone die. Or at least whoever's poisoned would die. So one of the rules for this challenge is because I'm allowing myself to use items in battle, I'm not allowing myself to use X items, because those can break things a little bit, especially in the later game. If you have something that's a good sweeper but doesn't have a setup move, being able to use X items is just slightly unfair in your advantage. So right now we're going back up to the town north of here, because once we go there, we can go to the route north of that, and we can fish to get a new encounter. That is not a great moveset. So because we have the duplicate clause on, this tentacle doesn't count as an encounter, unfortunately, which means we get to fish some more, and hope that we find... Okay, we do have to press the button to catch these. I need to stop fast-forwarding on that. Anyway, yeah, we get a new encounter because duplicate clause. That is what we were looking for. Alright, so Gyarados is probably my favorite Pokemon for Nuzlocke in general. It's very available in every game, and it is very strong. And so we're going to name it after one of my favorite figures in the Bible, which is Ruth. We have a two-part video on the Book of Ruth if you're curious. It's a fun book, and there's a lot of both Hebrew innuendo and also kind of racial stereotypes against Moabites in the book that a lot of people miss. So it's an interesting one. And now it's dead, because I forgot that it was poisoned. So, that's what happens to your favorites in Nuzlocke. They die before they see a single battle. Oops. Spacebar strikes again, indeed. Okida, we will take that. There aren't a lot of bad options in here. Although I guess even though Aeron is good, it would probably be pretty bad in the situation when we're trying to get ready for the fighting gym, and we're in a bit of a bad spot already. So getting a fighting type is better than getting the rock steel type. I was really hoping Rock Tomb wouldn't kill there. I didn't see a lot of options because we're low on Pokeballs. We don't get to use Flash. That'll be fun. Alright, right hand rule to those who are familiar. Okay, we are at the level cap, which means we need to keep an eye on the EXP in the bottom right there. And once it gets higher, we need to stop using Marshtomp, which means in the meantime, we really need to be using it for switch training to get something else usable up, probably the Tentacool. The one situation in which the right-hand rule does not work in this game is if there is a ladder that is in the middle of the room. Then you will never encounter it on the right hand of the wall. So I don't think that it comes up very often, and we're just gonna hope we don't run into that situation. See you later, Tomas. Have a good one. We do have the escape rope if we need it, but I kind of need to train the Tentacool anyway, so fine to do that by wandering around here on the way out. we're in another interesting situation here, where we don't have a way to give more moves. The Poochyena is not going to be useful in the next gym. We need to train up the Tentacool, but to do that, we have to use the Marshtomp, which we can't use much more without it going over the level cap anyway, and we don't want to use its little remaining PP it has for that situation. So, hello. Sure, you're live, by the way. For those who don't know, the lovely lady behind the camera is my wife, and she just bumped into it. But yeah, I'm going to get off soon to have dinner with her. So after this fight, we will call it a night. Alright, to those watching, thank you very much for hanging out for a little bit. I hope you will join us next time to see if we can survive the predicament we're in so far. In any case, God bless, and have a great day.